chime into what's happening with your favorite KFAN program. Make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryan text line. Let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard message and data rates apply.
Level 1314 pass, Common Man program. I'm Common. He is Tennessee. In Tennessee, there were a number of people that really excited to hear about the new and improved Common Man program. This one says, new and improved? Oh, boy. Can't wait, me boy. Then this one says, I long for the tired old bits. Radiators running dry. Hit the post. I don't think that's ever going to happen again. And this one was thinking of tuning out after how redundant the Grum had gotten, leaning in now for the new and improved. Love it. And I hope you have loved, because the changes are subtle, but they're there. 534 now here on the Common Man program.
Yeah, the new changes. I'm not ready for the open. Here we go.
Time now for 5 questions. Well, actually 3, but 5 sounds like more than 4. Question number 1. Programming predicament.
No.
Yeah, lots going on tonight. The Timberwolves host the Boston Celtics tonight at 6:30 p.m. It'll be nationally televised on TNT and True TV. And, of course, you can listen to it on the Wolves channel and the iHeartRadio app. The Gophers men's basketball team hosts Purdue at the Barn at 7 p.m. You can watch it on FS1 or hear it on Twin Cities News Talk, AM 1130 or FM 103.5. The Wild are in Washington at 6 p.m. tonight to take on the Capitals. You can hear that right here on the Fan, and you can watch it on FanDuel Sports Network. And the Minnesota Frost host the Boston Fleet at 6:30 p.m. on FanDuel Sports Network. Plus, Common, what are you going to do about tonight's
programming predicament?
Many choices. I don't want to be biased. I don't want everybody to say, oh, you don't care about the Frost, Todd. Don't care about the Gophers. Don't care about the Wolves. Don't care about the Wild. So you know what, Tennessee? I'll punt and take none of the above. I'm going to watch Jimmy Rockford and the Rockford Files.
Question number 2.
The Star Tribune put together their top 10 storylines of 2024 in Minnesota sports. At number 10, they had Minnesota State Mankato's sports run. Number 9, Gophers football rebound. Number 8, Minnesota wins a championship in first PWHL season. Number 7, a big year across the state in high school sports. Number 6, Karl Anthony Towns traded to the Knicks. Number 5, Suni Lee, fellow Minnesotans dominate Olympics. Number 4, the collapse and sale of the Twins. Number 3, a Lynx run to the verge of a title. Number 2, Timberwolves make a run to the Western Conference Final. And number 1, the Vikings magic ride. Common, do you agree with the Star Tribune's 10 biggest Minnesota sports storylines of 2024?
I don't know if there are some they left out that I
felt like there was one they were missing.
Common Man's hole-in-one up at Minnesota National
That
Golf
was a
Club.
huge one.
How about my 72 with my boy in tow up at the Pines Golf Club? Those are a lot of people are talking about those two accomplishments. And the Vikings, they are, we're a football town. They, in most cities, football reigns supreme. So that probably should be number 1, particularly when, other than all the guys in the locker room, they knew this was going to happen. They all knew they were going to go 14-2. Just ask them. The rest of us did not. Except, Tennessee, if you'll remember, I wanted to remind people, as the season started, as we headed into week 1, what did I say? It's the Vikings and the Falcons in the NFC Championship game, and you're on your own after that. So there are some of us that were predicting the Vikings were going to get to the NFC Championship game. So don't say nobody outside these walls. I saw that quote again. One of the players said, nobody out there gave us a chance. Well, I did. I said you'd get to the NFC Championship.
Just say most people.
Most people. That's right.
The one that I thought was missing was the Timberwolves ownership situation with Taylor and A-Rod and Laurie. And I get it. They're now the Minnesota Star Tribune, so they're trying to placate others around the state with all the high school stuff going on around the state. And Minnesota State Mankato, cute little story. I don't know. I think the ownership battle is a bigger,
especially
more newsworthy story.
Especially with the high school one, because every year there are great high school stories, right?
Yeah.
It's every year. I mean, are there some more than others? I don't know. You have so many different high school sports, and you have so many really great accomplishments that to say that this year is any different than another, I wouldn't do that. I think Fish Wrap Factory West Side is really, if you've noticed as I've been, every day perusing their website, they're featuring more high school sports, I think, than they ever have. It looks like they're really putting a focus on that because, let's face it, you can get, you're not going to get as up close and personal on the Vikings and all the local pro teams as you will from the two local Fish Wraps, or maybe the Athletic, but still, you can't get the high school stuff pretty much anywhere. And so if you're into high school sports, there's a lot of people out there that have kids playing, so I can see why.
I appreciate them doing that.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's a good move on their part.
Question number 3.
All Vikings, let's win this game. You'll hear us yell for more.
It's now time to take an in-depth look at the state of the skull.
Quarterback Sam Darnold, receiver Justin Jefferson, outside linebackers Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel, cornerback Byron Murphy Jr., and long snapper Andrew DePaula were voted onto the initial NFC roster for the Pro Bowl games on February 2nd in Orlando. All of them were voted as starters except for Darnold, who is listed as a backup behind Lions quarterback Jared Goff. Only the Ravens, with 9, and the Lions, with 7, had more selections than our favorite team. Common, do you agree with the Minnesota Vikings Pro Bowl selections?
I can't argue with them. Again, I shouldn't admit this working at the All Sports radio station, but I'm not paying that close attention to the NFL as I once did. So it's not like I peruse the statistics or the highlights from all 32 teams across the league. I pay pretty close attention. I pay closest attention to the Vikings. The Kitties and the Packers are close second and third. The Bears I would pay attention to if they were any good, but they're not. But I would say all of those are deserving of a Pro Bowl berth, sure. But again, it's like, okay, compare, like, what are the names again? Who was the last guy you mentioned?
Well, that was the long snapper, Andrew DePaul.
Okay, go up one from there.
Which he's now won 3 years in a row.
Okay.
Which I don't know how you decipher which long snapper should be there.
Who was the player before that?
Before DePaul, it was Byron Murphy Jr.
Okay. Is Byron Murphy Jr. one of the 2 or 3 best players at that position in the league? I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know what the other teams have to offer, but he certainly has had a great year for the Vikings. So, yeah, that's...
clearly Grenard and Van Ginkel are putting up huge numbers.
Absolutely.
Corners are going to be a little trickier.
Well, that's it. So, I don't have a bone to pick with any of those. It's the new me, tend to be. I'm more kinder, gentler, not as big a Richard. Just get started.
Question number 3. And now it's time to go in the trenches.
Number 6, The Ohio State University took down number 1 Oregon 41-21 in the 111th Rose Bowl last night as the Buckeyes advanced to the college football playoff semifinals. Common, did you watch the game? And if so, your thoughts?
Oh, I did indeed. I'm paying enough in tuition that I feel like anything Ohio State related I have to pay attention to because I'm already paying them. I was surprised. When Deuce said he was surprised the Gophers are getting a lot of first downs all those years ago?
Yes.
I was surprised at the dominance. Oregon hadn't lost a game all year. When the 2 teams played earlier, it was a 1-point game. I thought it would be much closer, but they were, especially in the first half, the first time they had the ball, it was 2 plays and they had a tutty. Next time they had the ball, it was 2 or 3 plays, they had a tutty. They just jumped out they were up 34-0 just before halftime, and then Oregon got a tutty and a tui. Tui's a 2-point conversion, so a tutty and a tui, but it was far short. I got to think they're the odds-on favorite now. Texas is pretty good. That's their next matchup. We'll see how that goes, but I would think the pass should be pretty clear. And what's interesting is, if you watch Ohio State play Michigan, the head coach for Ohio State is spooked about the school up north, right? Because I think 9 of their first 10 plays, or 8 of their first 9, or 12 of their first 13, 14 were running plays against Michigan. it was almost like, we don't want to make a mistake. We don't want to make a mistake. I'm not going to I think the quarterback, the kid's name Howard, don't want to let him throw an interception. After that loss, they've had 2 games. Their first round game, who did they beat in game 1? Don't recall now. Then their matchup against Oregon, they threw the ball again early and often. So instead of
Ohio State beat Tennessee in the first game.
So they beat Tennessee, and you know what they did? They threw the ball. They didn't just try to run it every single play. They threw the ball. They opened it up. They've got 2 of the best receivers in college football, and I think one of them might be the best receiver in college football. Don't be so terrified about the school up north. Throw the ball. It's preposterous. Now they threw the ball the last 2 games, and they ran it up on, I don't know if they ran it up on Tennessee. I don't recall every detail.
42-17.
Yeah, they ran it up on Tennessee, and they ran it up on Oregon, and they threw the ball. Throw the football, man.
When the bracket was revealed, I'm like, that's a bad draw for Oregon. Ohio State's the 8th seed.
Yes.
In the bracket, and so, even though you get a bye, that's who you're going to have to most likely face. If
they if they continue with the same kind of game plan and play like they're capable of. I mean, there were people saying at the beginning of the season that it wasn't quite like Rosen when he said that, the UConn women's team could beat did he say they could beat a Division II men's basketball team, I think he said? Remember that when we gave him a hard time for that? There were some that thought that the Ohio State...
Division III.
Division III?
Yeah.
He said there were... there are some people that were saying that Ohio State their team was good enough to play in the NFL. Let's not get crazy, folks. That's just ridiculous. Don't even say that. But that's how highly regarded they were, that they were as good as any team in football. And they sure showed it the last 2 games against Tennessee and against...
All I know is Penn State's now in the Final Four.
Yep.
Gophers had a legit chance to beat them at the end of that game.
Correct. Go Gophers. Sky-Uma. Row the boat. We'll break. We'll come back, tap dance a little bit, and then Ben Leber at 1:30 here on The Fan.
Don't miss out on the Power Trip Morning Show when they take over Treasure Island on February 6th and 7th. Be there for tons of games, laughs, and great prizes, including Vegas trips to watch the big game. Book your stay using the promo code KFAN for both the 6th and the 7th to save 15%. To get the full details and book your stay today, head over to KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
I can promise you this. You'll laugh so hard your side will ache. Your heart will go pitty-pat. Be there at Treasure Island with the Power Trip Morning Show will be like watching Felix. Felix the cat. Text messages accepted at the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686. We are broadcasting live from the cozy confines in the climate-controlled 651 Carpets Plus studios. They're home of the next day install. Purple Gal says, can you give us all the deets on Meat Sauce's new baby? I hardly ever get to listen to the Power Trip. Shocker. Signed Purple Gal. Louis Lambert, right? I did not congratulate. I don't know how many other people did. I'm not on Twitter except during football games, and then I only I give, I don't receive. Tenabe, did you? How many people congratulated him on Twitter? See, I did not. I have his personal phone number, and so I texted him and said, "You a dad yet?" He said, "Yes, sir." And then I asked for the details. I think 7.2 pounds, I believe. Louis Lambert. I forget the middle name. Louis Michael Lambert. And, good for Meat Sauce. And I told him, you'll be a good dad. I think he will. I think he'll enjoy. And Tenabe, I think you would agree with this. It's very challenging, but it's also very rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing better. So that's the
hardest thing you'll do in your life and the greatest thing you'll do in your life.
I think I would agree with that. And so congratulations to Meat Sauce. I'll offer it here on the air. It's no different than a tweet, but I just had to say it. So there's the details for Purple Gal. So you have to tell me, what's a Slewfoot?
A Slewfoot? Basically, you're using your foot as a way to trip.
Okay.
So in the case that Jared Spurgeon was going into the corner to pick up the puck. The guy whose name I can't pronounce, who slew-footed him, was right up behind him, and you do the old take your feet out from behind and pull them back. So what happened is Jared Spurgeon ended up going full speed, basically feet first into the boards.
I saw the replay.
And then, it's very dangerous play, obviously.
Yeah. What was weird was the replay I saw, it seemed like the two angles, the net was kind of obscuring my view. So I could
really?
kind of, the replay I saw, the net kind of obscured my view of exactly what a Slewfoot was, but it is an illegal, and it's considered a cheap shot. And I wonder why, and that's not, there's no way it's accidental, right? I mean, that's something that he purposely did from right? And that's the way it seems everyone's describing it. That's something that doesn't just
he's had a history, not in the NHL, but in previous stops. He's had a history of not being very, very well behaved on the ice.
Yeah. Do we know, again, my guess it's a lower body injury because the way he slammed into the boards.
Well, he literally couldn't put weight on his right foot from the corner all the way to the bench. They had to have someone hold him up. So that's not a good sign. Do you know any more than that? Or has anything? I know they're not going to give us any specifics, but does it look to be like worst case scenario? We haven't heard anything regarding the injury other than obviously he's out for tonight's game. Okay. Like I said, seeing how he reacted to it, not putting weight on it, I'd have a hard time believing he's coming back anytime soon. Okay. I would think it's multiple weeks, months, hopefully not season ending. Yeah. How big of a loss? At this stage, it's just please be healthy by the time the playoffs come around is what I would. How big of a loss is that? Scale of 1 to 10. 10 being we can't overcome it. 1 being no big deal. Your 10s on this team are Kirill Kaprizov and Brock Faber. Okay. Or not Brock Faber. Kirill Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson Ek. Right. Those are your 10s. Is Gustafsson a 10 too? Close. I mean, the way he's playing. Well, yeah, he hasn't played as well, right? Well, no, I'm saying, generally speaking, he's played pretty darn well this year. Okay. Like he's the one guy that when you have injuries, he's going to have to keep you afloat. So he's up there. So then your next tier is going to be Faber, Boldy, Zooks, Brodin, Spurgeon. I mean, those guys are all in that tier 2 of. So I'm not going to put Spurgeon at 10. And frankly, if Brock Faber hadn't come around when we acquired him in that Fiala trade, if he hadn't emerged like he had, this would be even more significant because they'd be depending on him. Faber can pick up the slack a lot for Spurgeon. We just don't necessarily have someone to pick up the slack for Brock Faber. Right. Okay. It's significant, and it's more significant because you have other injuries elsewhere, right? Like if he was the only guy out, you can survive. But when you compound that with Kirill Kaprizov being hurt, Middleton, another defenseman, though it sounds like he might have been skating this morning, so he might be getting closer to getting back, or at least showing some signs of recovery. But so it's your second defenseman out, and you're also missing your all-world forward. Kaprizov has been out for how many games now? Is it 3 or 4? Basically since the Christmas break. How many ever games that's been? So 3, 4, 5 games. Yeah. Any word on? Is it low? I didn't see lower or upper. I think his is lower as well. Okay. Is he skating? No. Oh. And technically, he was placed on injured reserve. Now that might just be a formal move to be able to move some pieces around and that kind of stuff and salary cap stuff, but doesn't look like his return is anytime soon. Wolves seem to be. And the problem is in hockey, they're so secretive about injuries. Yeah. We never know. It could be he could be back in 4 days. He could be back in 4 months. You just never know. Wolves seem to have their ups and downs while I was away. More ups than downs, though. They played the team with the best record in the NBA the other night and got beat by. OKC was their last loss. Is it SGA or is it SAG? The initials for the guy for OKC. I think it's SGA. SGA was brilliant. He had 40 points. The Wolves couldn't stop him. Your mama couldn't stop him. Your daddy couldn't stop him. Nobody could stop him. And they play the Celtics tonight, the best team in the East, I think, are amongst them.
We'll break. We'll come back. Ben Leber, sideline reporter, local TV star, former National Football Leaguer, will join us next to talk Vikings-Lions. Common Man program on the Fan. It's been a fast-paced, action-packed Common Man program today, back from vacay. Pardon me. Common tend to be excited and delighted to be joined on the Connecticut Water Systems hotline by former National Football Leaguer, as well as local TV legend, Twin Cities Live, and, of course, sideline reporter for the Minnesota Vikings radio network. Ben Leber joins us now. Ben, thanks for taking time out from your very busy schedule to join us here today.
Are you kidding me, Common? I mean, when you put out the signal and you text me, I mean, I just can't wait to text you back and get back on your show. I mean, you hold me out for so long. You hold me down. You try to silence me. But no, here we are, January 2nd. Let's do this.
Let me ask you a question. When you appear on the other shows, does the host directly ask you to come on, or do they use one of their producers? Is there a go-between?
Usually it's the person, it's the on-air talent that texts me.
Really? So PA texts you? It's not Nordo and Barrero? They actually text you?
Sometimes. Well, it's a little bit of both. Like Nordo will text me sometimes, and sometimes it comes from PA.
Oh, okay.
But in our situation, you know, Tenna, he doesn't. What does Tenna do?
Tenna just tolerates being here. Of all the people in the world that dislike their jobs, who did I use as an example earlier, Tenna B?
It was at the golf course you were at.
Oh, yeah, the golf course I was at. I was out at Pete Dye course, Dunes course, PGA West. The person behind the counter hated their job more than any other person in the world, and then said, except for the person on the other side of the glass, meaning him. So, yeah, so I don't like to put too much on Tenneby's plate because then he might just quit. So we don't book many guests anyways, and I know you personally, so it's just easier for me to go, hey, Ben, can you come on? And you said, yeah, 1:30 to 2, and then I just text in and say, hey, we're going to have Leber on later today. I don't big time the producer, even though I guess that's what their job is, but I don't do that. I just go directly to the source.
Well, and we'll get this, too. I mean, do you think he called me for this?
No.
I had to call in.
Yeah.
He called us.
Yeah.
I didn't have to call him.
Yeah. Don't call us, we'll call you, as the old saying goes. You know, this is just so ironic that you're on today with the Kitties and the Lions and this matchup coming up. You started your career as a Saskatchewan Rough Rider. Then you went to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They cut you. You were just kind of a vagabond player. Suddenly, you sign as a free agent in the National Football League with the Motor City Kitties. You play a number of years there. Then you go to Minnesota and finish your career with the Vikings. And lo and behold, it's Vikings Lions for the whole ball of wax. I know you played for both franchises. Have a soft spot for either one in this upcoming game? Is there a team you're pulling for? I know you work for the radio network now, so I'm assuming it's Minnesota, but you had some real splendid years in Detroit, too.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult, because it's like I have a very similar sort of timeline like Kurt Warner, although our finish lines aren't quite the same. But I was in Canada. He was in the Arena Football League. There's a team that gave him a chance, and it flourished. And the team that gave me the chance out of Canada was Detroit. And, partially it's because we were just like basically right across the river there. Look, I always have a special place in my heart for Detroit and for what they did. But look, man, like my roots are in Minnesota.
Correct.
And I'm forever a Viking. So this one won't be too difficult for me. I'm definitely cheering for Minnesota.
Let's get right to the chase, and we'll do some particulars out. I'm going to go in reverse order because usually the the host will ask the guest, the last question will be, who wins and why? I'm going to ask at the very beginning, who wins and why, Detroit or Minnesota?
I think Minnesota wins, and I think it comes down to whose defense is better. And right now, the Vikings defense is healthier, and I think when you look at position by position, they're overall just a better defense. Now, the Lions offense kind of figured out the defense in the first game. After about the first quarter, it was, they stopped up our blitz package and they did all this other stuff to give Jared Goff time. I just think when you look at how the defenses are different and the teams are different, it really comes down to who has the better defense. And I think the Vikings overall have the better defense, and that ultimately is what's going to win the game.
It's interesting. It's almost like, we accuse Rosen of stealing your takes often. I would accuse you of stealing my take, even though I know you weren't listening, because that's exactly what I said. I said at the beginning of the show, I said, this doesn't seem too complicated to me. You have the Vikings offense is right now, they're elite. I mean, Sam Darnold is playing as good as any quarterback in the league. He's a top 5 quarterback right now. They have maybe the best wide receiver combination in pro football. Their tight end is exceptional. They have bookend tackles, and even though Darisaw is out, Cam Robinson has comported himself quite well. O'Neal's terrific. They have a good running game. They're going to score points on a team that over the last 3 games has given up more yards per play on average than any team in the league, 7.9 points. San Francisco put up, 500 yards against them in a meaningless game, missing some of their best players. And Detroit's offense can put up points. We know that, and my guess is they will. Even, Beeflo's defense is as good as it gets. That's another top 5 defense for sure. But the Lions are so accomplished offensively, I think they will move the ball and score some points. But you've nailed it. I just don't think Detroit's defense can slow Minnesota down. They're too good. They'll blitz a lot. They blitz 33% of the time. That's 3rd in the league. And they're going to try that, but they'll get burned. It might work a couple of times, but they're going to get burned. They have no pass rush right now. I tweeted yesterday and I said it today. I think it's like a 38-24 kind of game. I think the Vikings could score every time they get the ball. I really do.
Well, it's interesting because when you kind of break it down in series by series, you get maybe, let's just say 8 or 9 opportunities on offense to have the football. I mean, you get about 2 to 3 opportunities and drives per quarter, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look at which defense is going to get more stops in those 8 or 9 opportunities, I just think the Vikings will. I mean, it may not be completely 3 and outs, and it might be 6-7 play drives that get down close to the red zone, and whether it's just a field goal they give up or they give up no points because, your guy over there loves to go for it on 4th down. I just think there's more confidence in our Vikings defense to get 2-3 of those stops on those 8 or 9 series versus what we've seen out of this defense. And even if Anzalone comes back, yes, he will be better than what they have. But I think there's way too many warts on that defense for him just to overcome all of those things. They've got issues just from a schematic standpoint. They have guys that can't execute even the right calls. It seems like they get a little bit confused on some motions and shifts. And I think that you can do a lot of window dressing and kind of confuse them. That's certainly what happened with San Fran. They were looking at one thing and the ball was going someplace else. So, I think in the end, I could see a score that kind of ends up being like that. I
want you to take this as a compliment. If you call Detroit right now, they'd sign you if you said you wanted to play this Sunday night. They would. They absolutely would take it. You are a quality linebacker. You're still in good shape. You're young. You pay attention to the league. You could step in and start at linebacker Sunday night for Detroit, and they'd be a better defense.
Only if they ask me to rush the passer. I don't want to drop backwards. I don't want to do any of the pass cover stuff. Just bring me in on
they blitz 33% of the time.
Well, it's interesting because when I've watched the last couple of games, I don't actually think they blitz that much. I know when it comes to the season totals, they're kind of high up there. I think they're the 3rd highest blitzing team in the league. But they don't seem to blitz that much the last couple of games. I don't know if they just don't trust the guys in the back end. maybe they don't trust the guys blitzing. They don't feel like they have the personnel to blitz, and so they're just not blitzing as much. But yes, you'll get some blitzes on third downs. You'll get some different rushes out of a four-man rush. Like they might drop an end and bring the nickel. It's still just a four-man rush. So it's not a blitz. That's still just a four-man rush.
Right.
They will do some of that, but I think they are kind of scaling back the number of blitzes and playing much more coverage, which, in the end, kind of is like the best recipe to play against our offense. Darnold is fantastic against the blitz.
Yes, he is.
Where he struggles a little bit sometimes is when you drop out in coverage and sort of confuse him and put more bodies out there.
I think the number I saw, and I used this number earlier, and I think I used it in the wrong context because my note-taking leaves a lot to be desired. If you'll remember, I not only have 4 years of college eligibility remaining, but 2 of high school, so I didn't take a lot of notes while I was in school. But I think the note that I saw was Darnold against a 5 pass rushers or more has a quarterback rating of 145.2. To your point, you can throw 5-6 guys at him, but Darnold gets rid of the ball quickly, and because they have talented pass catchers and a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield, the blitz head doesn't really seem to bother Minnesota too terribly much.
No, it really doesn't. There have been some teams that will dial up some pressures. Like Atlanta. Atlanta wasn't a great blitzing team, but they blitzed from depth really, really well. And so it wasn't until a snap of the ball until they decided to go downhill, and they had the number count. They had, they kind of had a beat on some of our schemes, and they had some free rushers. But if you do any bit of sort of tipping off where the safeties are going to rotate or where the side of where the blitz is coming from, my goodness, Sam sees that instantaneously and knows exactly where to go with the football. So I actually hope that they blitz a lot more just because he's been fantastic all season.
Lay out a scenario for me. Paint me a picture of how Detroit could win this game. If they were to win on Sunday at the Litter Box in Pontiac, what do you think would have to happen for that to occur for Detroit to win?
Well, really for both teams, it's going to come down to limiting offensive opportunities, and whether that's takeaways, defense just steps up somehow and either knocks the ball out of a ball carrier's hand or gets a couple interceptions, or the Lions are able to go on multiple long drives that suck up a lot of clock. And if they can do that, then the Vikings are going to fit in, and they have to put the ball in the end zone at the end. I mean, they've got to have the payoff. It can't just be about, running 6-7 minutes off the clock and then they don't get any points. If they can do that consistently a few times and put points on the board, well, then inherently you're just stealing possessions from the Vikings offense. And then they're going to feel like, oh my gosh, we got to press a little bit more. Now we got to get a little bit more one-dimensional. I think that's about the only way, not the only way, but one of the big ways I think the Lions can beat the Vikes.
They rush the ball more than any team in the league. They average 28 carries per game. Now, Demo's out.
Mm-hmm.
What is it again? Sonic and Knuckles? Sonic's there. Knuckles is out. Gibbs hasn't really missed a beat. He's a really talented kid, and I tend to agree with you. I think they're going to try to feed him the ball out. They got a couple of backup running backs that carry the ball occasionally, and they'll probably try to do those short patterns. Amon-Ra St. Brown's good across the middle. You got a good tight end in Laporta. Maybe that will be their plan to say, we need to put time-consuming, sustained drives. 4 yards here, 8 yards there, 3 yards there, another 6 there. Stretch it out to you're picking up first downs on third down. And lo and behold, that's the way Zimmer used to want to play football. Run the ball all day, right? It's the old school way of playing football, where what the Giants used to do back in their heyday under Parcells. You run the ball over and over and over again and short pass it. You eat up 6, 7, 8 minutes of clock, accentuate it with a tutty, and then get a 3 and out and do the same thing again. And the next thing you know, you're up 14-0. The other team's had the ball for 4 minutes. Not even 4 minutes, a couple of minutes. Right?
Yeah, and we've kind of, maybe I'm just reading between the lines and maybe you're thinking more too much of it, but Dan Campbell's already said that about, I don't care how we win this game. The idea is to win this game on Sunday night. So he's already got it in his mind that style points are out of the window. Like, this is just a finish the game with one more point than the Minnesota Vikings and then get your first round bye. That's it. So if it comes out in a flashy fashion and they're able to pass the ball around the yard and they're able to get some defensive stops, then great. But I think that he's fully invested in what you just said. Run the ball, try to exploit this defense with a really talented running back, chew up a lot of clock. It can be boring football, but at the end of the day, he does not care. It is about, taking advantage of any vulnerabilities. And I got to be honest, our run defense on paper has been really good. Now, we were good last week. We hadn't been good the prior couple weeks. So why not try to go after them the same way you went after them in the first game and get Gibbs going on the ground? And he is fantastic. I do think it's going to be a little different with Cashman in there. I mean,
yep, he wasn't there the last game. 4
different iterations of inside linebackers in the game that he was out against the Lions in the first game. I mean, we saw Dallas Turner playing inside linebacker, trying to fill a void there. No more of that. We got Ivan Pace, the run stopper, in there, and we've got Cashman, the leader, in there, and also great on third downs and is a great blitzer. So, we'll see what this run defense looks like when we have a full complement of linebackers in there.
What makes the Lions offense so good at this point of the season? Is it a number of things, one thing? What's your take?
I think that they just can beat you in so many different ways. I mean, to your point, I think the way they're constructed, in the way that they've built their offensive line and the mentality and the attitude, if they wanted to go completely old school NFC North black and blue and just run the football, and I'm not even saying it has to be creative. They could put a fullback or a Dan Skipper in the backfield as a fullback and just run power football. They're built like that. They can handle that. All those guys up front would much rather just go forward and not have to pass block. So they can beat you that way if they really have to. They can also get super creative with different alignments. They've got 12 personnel, 13 personnel, using Dan Skipper as an offensive lineman. They've used multiple offensive linemen down in the red zone all at the same time. They can also spread you out and get super dynamic. So, I think it's just, from a defensive standpoint, they give you so much to look at, and they're kind of exhausting.
I know how high you are on the Vikings coaching staff. You love KOC, Flores, all the rest, Wes Phillips, and the position coaches. You think they have a coaching staff that can get to a big game, and that could even happen this year. What are your thoughts on Dan Campbell? And he's kind of that old school, kind of gruff guy with biting kneecaps and front porch. Do you like Dan Campbell as a coach, and is he a guy you could play for?
Absolutely. I think there are multiple ways to win. I mean, we've seen that. Obviously, you have to have great quarterback play, but the Bill Belichick style of coaching is not for everybody. But if it works within that organization and for the people that you want on that roster, then it works. And if the Andy Reid's of the world that take a little bit of a different approach, if that works, then it works. What KOC is doing here with the type of guys they have on the roster and the way he's doing things, it is working, just like it's working for the mentality of that Lions organization. So I think when you find something, I think, owners have to be very careful about trying to they're doing it this way, so I have to do it this way. No, you go with what you think is the best fit. And they did a great job of hiring the right GM and the head coach, and it's working. And we're doing the same thing here. So it is kind of fun to see the contrast of personalities on the opposite side of the football. But both franchises got to be super happy with the direction of their teams.
2 questions about Sam Darnold. One is what you think the team is thinking, and then what Ben Leber would do if he were the general manager or coach of the club. Do you think the Vikings part ways with Sam Darnold and say, thanks for your service, but we've got our franchise quarterback waiting in the wings. We drafted him 10th overall. Good luck to you, and thanks for all you've done for the organization. Or do you say, this guy's playing like a franchise quarterback? This is what every team looks for, is a guy that can play at that level, and it's been a really high level. His quarterback rating has been over 100 in 13 games. If he does it again now, he will be tied with Aaron Rodgers as the only quarterbacks to have 14 games in which they've had 100-plus passer rating. Do you re-sign him as a no-brainer? What are your thoughts? What do you think the team will do, and what would you do?
Well, I would personally just let him go and say,
you would.
Thanks for everything. You knew your role. You played it better than we ever expected. You have groomed and showed J.J. McCarthy at least another level of being a professional and what it takes to be a professional and be consistent week in and week out. So we appreciate you for that. We're going to take all of this money that we have in free agency, and we're going to go sign some other players to fill in some gaps on offense and defense and really build up a team of depth behind McCarthy. What I think they're going to do is I think they're going to franchise him. They will allow him to go find another deal. They probably will not match that deal, and they will get compensation for not matching that deal. I do see a scenario, but I don't think that they're going to do this. I do not think that they're going to sign him to a 2 or 3 year contract. I just don't. The whole reason why they wanted to get rid of Kirk Cousins and not re-sign him was it's financial. I mean, I know that they're at different points of their career, and Sam Darnold is actually more athletic and all this other stuff. They are different players. But I think there's some excitement in that building of using the money. I think there's 6th most cap space going into next year to spend on a veteran roster to build exactly the type of team that they want. And then they're going to have they've already got a backup quarterback signed for next year. And now they have J.J. McCarthy as a soon-to-be 22-year-old that very much could look like Bo Nix after about the quarter pole of the season. He could very, very easily, in my mind, have a similar season to Bo Nix, which I think is winning football, especially with the right roster.
The danger, though, would be what if he turns out to be the next Christian Ponder? Then you've lost your job as a general manager and a coach, correct? Because if you let and if Darnold continues to progress and he's on a incline rather than a decline, go somewhere else and quarterbacks a team deep into the playoffs, and McCarthy just doesn't have it, which is possible, right? It's possible. You've lost your job, but you're willing to take that risk. Is it because you believe enough in McCarthy or O'Connell and their quarterbacks coach, McNown, which one is it? I can't remember which one. Did you believe enough in them that they can coach up McCarthy and he's already got a lot of talent. I get that. But you're willing to take that risk because you have a known quantity in Sam Darnold.
I mean, that's the...
You have a known quantity in Sam Darnold. You don't in McCarthy.
Paid for.
All right. Okay. I don't know if it's as easy as that, but I think a lot of people tend to agree with you because you're in a perfect world. McCarthy steps in and he does have that franchise quarterback talent, and you can grow them from the ground up. And you got 4 or 5 years, well, before now, years of a rookie contract, just like Joe Burrow did with Cincinnati. Right?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the thing is that if you sign Sam to, let's say, a 3-year deal, then you have to do something with McCarthy. You just have to. I mean, you're not going to find any better value right now. He's going to be the highest. This is the most value you're going to get out of him. If he rides the bench for 2 more years, you're not going to get much compensation.
Yeah, that's true.
So now you're in a conundrum where you now have to like spin that 1st round draft pick, which is going to be sort of a loss. You're not going to get the equal compensation. So now it's like, okay, now we've got a new quarterback at about $100 million guaranteed, probably in the $120 million overall. You now have $100 million guaranteed in another quarterback. And then you got to hope that he plays at or near the same level that he's never done before. It's like, he's doing it right now, and we all see it, and the proof is in the pudding. But, you really think that you're going to get this level of play for the next 3 years, and it's worth it for $120 million or $100 million guaranteed on the books? I don't know, man. You have a plan with McCarthy. I think you just stick with it.
Okay. And you make a lot of sense. And I, even though I'm not certain I would do that, you've pushed me in that direction a little more than I was before our conversation started. Last question for you. Let's say you had the genie's lamp. You rubbed the side of the lamp and the genie popped out and said, "Master, you have 3 wishes." What would those wishes be, Ben Leber? Because I can
for this season?
Well, because I can tell you what mine would be. The first one would be I'd ask her for 3 more wishes. Now I would have 5. Then my next wish would be that it's 7:20 on Sunday night. That's how badly I want that. I'd use one of my wishes because I've been waiting all week for Sunday night. That's what I would do. That's what I would do if I had 3 wishes. And now I would use that one. I'd still have 4 in my back pocket. What do you think of that?
Well, I would take the same approach by asking for more wishes. And then if it comes into relation to this game, I'd say, obviously, I wish that the Vikings win this game. And I wish that they come out completely and 100% healthy. And then we'll just go from there, and I'll just kind of keep a few wishes in my back pocket. But, health is going to be a big thing because I feel bad for whatever team loses because we know this is going to be a physical football game, and one of these teams is going to have to go on the road either on Friday or Saturday to go play a really, whoever it is going to be a tough opponent, and it's going to be often a very emotional letdown and a physical letdown as well.
Thanks for your time. Get to work. You got to go to the boob tube for Twin Cities Live. We'll see you then.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks. Ben Leber joins us here on the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. We'll take a break. Another TV star, the legendary Mark Rosen. He joins us next right here on The Fan.